Welcome, all, to one of the best movies of the 1960s, and that would be Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho, a film that forever impacted the genre of suspense and horror movies that were made after that. Alfred kept you on a suspenseful tightrope from the very beginning of the movie, and then that twist at the end, spoiler alert, threw us all for a loop back in the day. So let's dive right into it. The movie begins in a small town with Marion Crane, played brilliantly by Janet Leigh, and her love interest, Sam Loomis, played by actor John Gavin. The pair meet up regularly at an area hotel, and they want to be together, but Sam is saying he can't afford it. He has to pay his wife, soon-to-be ex, alimony, but he promises to figure something out. Marion returns to work at a realtor's office where a rich cowboy investor is flashing $40,000 he wants to use to buy his daughter a house as a wedding gift. Now understand, 40 grand in 1960 is the equivalent of $300,000 by today's standards, so it's a lot of money. Marion's boss asks her to take the money to the local bank and deposit it. She takes the money and then asks her boss if she can go home early. She's not feeling well. Her boss says sure, and she tells him she'll drop the money off on her way home. Needless to say, she's doing no such thing. Instead, Marion is at home packing. Yes, she's going to run off with that money. To her, this is the perfect answer to her and Sam's dilemma. So she jumps in her car and starts driving to the town where Sam lives. She's putting as many miles between her and her hometown as she can, literally driving through the night. At some point, she's totally exhausted and she pulls over the side of the road to sleep for a bit. First thing in the morning, there's a knock on the window, and Marion is startled to see that it's a cop. She's got $40,000 of stolen money on her. If she gets caught, she's going to prison.
Have I broken any laws?
No, ma'am.
Then I'm free to go.
The cop is suspicious, but he lets her go. Yet, he's right behind her, seemingly following her for a few miles before he exits the freeway. This whole thing has now made Marion pretty nervous. As she's driving, she's passing by a used car lot, and she has an idea. She decides she's going to trade out her car. She pulls in the lot and looks around a bit. And the idea is feeling really good to her now because she notices that all the cars in the lot have California plates. Her car has an Arizona plate on it. She's definitely gonna get out of her car. And so, as she's waiting around and looking around the lot, she just happens to glance up across the street. And who should be pulling up, just sitting there now, looking at her? That same police officer. This cop has a bug about Marion that he simply can't let go. So, Marion, glancing back every now and again and just seeing the cop car still there, she concludes her transaction with the used car owner as quickly as possible, and she gets into a new car. We next see Marion back on the road. It's gotten late, it's gotten dark, and now it's beginning to rain. Not only does it rain, but it's becoming a torrential downpour. And as Marion is driving, it's getting harder and harder for her to see. She has oncoming traffic where the headlights are glaring in her eyes. You got the windshield wipers going as fast as they can, but it's doing little to help her vision. She's driving along when traffic seems to thin out, and it appears that she's driving on a road alone. As she continues driving, she sees a sign up ahead. The infamous Bates Motel. She pulls over and eventually meets the proprietor of the hotel, and that would be the owner, Norman Bates. Norman introduces himself and explains that the motel is empty due to the highway having been diverted some time ago. Marion registers as Marie Samuel from Los Angeles, California. She is shown to her room, and Norman invites her to have dinner with him. She agrees, and he tells her he'll come down in a bit to pick her up. Now, I'm gonna tell y'all something. This whole house looks sketchy. The house looks sketchy. This rundown motel looks sketchy. And if you stared at Norman Bates long enough, and that wouldn't have to be too long, he looks sketchy. But Sister Girl is on the run. She has this great life planned out in her mind. She has 40,000 stolen dollars on her. And so I'm sure, as far as Sister Girl is concerned, this little detour is simply a bump on the road to her getting to her dream come true with her dream man. So Norman leaves and Marion starts to unpack. She's looking at the money and telling herself that she needs to hide it. She goes around the room and she opens the drawers and she looks inside of them and kind of shakes it off and says, okay, this isn't gonna work. And then she has what I feel is a great idea. She's going to hide the money in the newspaper. She sets it out, she folds it over, and then she does something that I personally kind of think is brilliant. She hides the money in the newspaper in plain sight. As she goes back to unpack her things, she hears through the open window two voices arguing. Norman's voice, which clearly she can recognize, but then she hears the voice of an older woman. This older woman is saying some jacked up stuff about her. She's accusing her of, for lack of another term, being a hussy. And she don't want that hussy in her kitchen. She even insults Norman, saying he's having some improper thoughts about some improper activities with this woman, and this woman isn't gonna eat her food. Needless to say, the argument carries on until you hear Norman yelling at the woman's voice, and I guess you have to assume that perhaps this is his mom. You hear him yelling for her to shut up. It is kind of disturbing. Now, I'm going to tell you something. I got one good time to hear that mother going off like that concerning me. I am going to be so gone and in the wind by the time Norman got back to come pick me up, to take me into that hot mess of a house. I would have already repacked my clothes, gotten into that car, and drove off. Just saying, is it me, y'all? Or is it just one little sketchy piece of business on top of another sketchy piece of business on top of another sketchy piece of business? I mean, that mother was saying some tore up stuff. And there's no way I would still be there. And keep in mind, the whole setting still seems sketchy. My spider senses would have been just tingling all over the joint. I'm telling you, I would have been long gone by the time Brother Man came back looking for me. So Norman returns, carrying a tray of food, and he's kind of apologetic, kind of embarrassed about the whole bit because he surmises she heard the whole thing. Yet he still invites her to come on into the office. We'll go into the back parlor and we can sit and visit and eat some food. And she agrees. So she's eating and they're visiting and talking for a while. And then the discussion takes a turn. Listen to this.
You understand? I don't hate her. I hate what she's become. I hate the illness.
Wouldn't it be better if you put her someplace?
Uh-oh.
You mean an institution? A madhouse? People always call a madhouse someplace, don't they?
Oh boy, did he float.
Put her in someplace.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean it to sound uncaring.
What do you know about caring? Have you ever seen the inside of one of those places?
Have you?
The laughing and the tears. And the cruel eyes studying you. My mother there. But she's harmless. She's as harmless as one of those stuffed birds.
I am sorry. I only felt... It seems she's hurting you. I meant well.
Girl, you should be
People always mean well.
rag.
They cluck their thick tongues and shake their heads and suggest oh so very delicately. Of course, I've suggested it myself. But I hate to even think about it.
Okay, she decided to stay after that seriously nutty conversation. For some reason, she's adding up and looking at her cash. She seems cautious in some ways and then not cautious at all in others. I still would not be here. Between Norman and his mother's outburst, I would have been long gone. Alright, here is the classic scene that scared everybody from taking a shower for a good year after this movie. As for me, I couldn't shower with that shower curtain completely closed. I'd have to leave a little gap in it. Like I said, for at least a good year. Even the actress Janet Leigh confessed she had a problem taking showers after doing this scene. Now in the next scene, you can hear Norman screaming about seeing blood. He rushes out of the house and down to the motel, and he runs straight into Marion's room, into the bathroom, and he sees her body. He has a problem on his hands. He surmises his mom did this, and so he has to clean everything up and get rid of everything. He has to get rid of the body, the suitcase, everything she brought with her, including the newspaper with the, unbeknownst to him, money hidden inside. He takes the car to a swamp and sinks it. He gives a little smile, a little smirk right there, because he feels he and his mother are now safe. Now the movie shifts to Sam, and it's a week later, and we see him writing a letter to Marion. We also see that Marion's sister, Lila, has shown up looking for her. In addition to that, we've got a detective on the scene as well who was hired by Marion's boss, Mr. Lowry. He checks out Sam's shop, and then what he does is looks around the neighborhood to confirm that Marion is nowhere there in town. During his search for Marion, he comes upon the Bates Motel. Norman says he's never seen her.
Marion Crane's a real name. Could have registered under a different one. And do you mind if I look at your book?
No.
Norman lets him look at his signing book, and he sees the signature of Marie Sanders. He has a copy of Marion's handwriting, and he compares it. They're both the same. Norman now tries to play it off by saying he made a mistake. It's hard for him to keep track. Yada yada.
Mm-hmm. Which morning was that?
the next morning.
The detective wants to search through the cabins. Norman says no, you're going to need a search warrant if you want to look around. The detective then says, how about I talk to your mom?
Would I need a warrant for that, too?
Sure.
The detective calls Lila and tells her that he thinks Norman's mom saw Marion, and Norman won't let him speak with her. He tells Lila that he's going to speak with the mom and he'll call her later in about an hour. The detective returns to the hotel. He doesn't see Norman, so he goes up to the house. He just goes right in without knocking or calling out. Needless to say, he's the next one that gets knifed. Marion's sister, Lila, and Sam, they're growing impatient about this whole thing. So Sam goes to Bates Motel. He returns to his shop where Lila is waiting, and he tells her he didn't see Norman nor the detective, just some old lady in the window, who he assumes to be Norman's mom. He tells Lila that the detective probably came up with a clue and he's chasing it down. The sister says, you know what? Screw all of this. We need to talk to somebody official, and they go and wake up the town sheriff, seeking his help. The sheriff calls Norman, who tells him that the detective had been there, but he left. He got a clue, and so he's chasing that down. He's never come back. Lila said that's odd because the detective told her he was going to call her after he spoke with Norman's mom. The sheriff tells the pair that Norman's mom has been dead for more than 10 years. He tells them that the mom offed herself and her married lover, and it was Norman who found both the bodies. Sam goes off because he swears he saw this old lady in the window at the house.
I will not hide in the fruit cellar.
Norman is beginning to feel the heat, and he tells his mom she has to hide.
Put me down. I can walk on my own.
In the meantime, Lila and Sam come up with a plan. They're going to go to Bates Motel pretending to be a married couple. Then they're going to check the place out. The first thing they're going to want to do is search the cabin where Marion stayed. In their search, they go into the bathroom and find a piece of paper on the floor. It's in Marion's handwriting, and it has the number 40,000 on it. So Lila and Sam come up with a plan. Sam's going to distract Norman while Lila sneaks into the house to speak with the mom.
Mrs. Bates?
Norman starts to feel a little hinky about this whole thing, and he and Sam end up in a struggle. Norman knocks Sam out, and he makes a beeline for the house. Lila sees him coming, and she tries to hide. She noticed the basement door is open, so she goes down to check it out and sees who she thinks is Norman's mom. So this is the hot mess of an ending. Norman has been dressing up as his mother while keeping the body of his mother around. A psychiatrist comes in at the end of the movie to give an explanation.
But in Norman's case, he was simply doing everything possible to keep alive the illusion of his mother being alive. And when reality came too close, when danger or desire threatened that illusion, he'd dress up, even to a cheap wig he bought. He'd walk about the house, sit in her chair, speak in her voice. He tried to be his mother. And now he is. Now that's what I meant when I said I got the story from the mother. You see, when the mind houses two personalities, there's always a conflict, a battle. In Norman's case, the battle is over, and the dominant personality has won.
And the $40,000? Who got that?
The swamp. These were crimes of passion, not profit.
He feels a little chill. Can I bring him this blanket?
Sure. All right.
This actor looks so familiar, and for the life of me, I can't name who he is.
It's sad when a mother has to speak the words that condemn her own son, but I couldn't allow them to believe that I would commit murder. They'll put him away now, as I should have, years ago. He was always bad. And in the end, he intended to tell them I killed those girls and that man, as if I could do anything except just sit and stare, like one of his stuffed birds. Well, they know I can't even move a finger, and I won't. I'll just sit here and be quiet, just in case they do suspect me. They're probably watching me. Well, let them. Let them see what kind of a person I am. I'm not even going to swat that fly. I hope they are watching. They'll see. They'll see and they'll know. And they'll say, why, she wouldn't even harm a fly.
Well, folks, there you have it. Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho. And Bates was played by the actor Anthony Perkins, who did a phenomenal job. On the negative side, I believe that the job he did was so phenomenal that he pretty much got typecast, and so I think certain roles that he would have wanted to do, people looked at him and all they saw was Norman Bates. Thanks for spending time with me. Be sure to subscribe, like, and leave a comment if you desire. Until next time.